include Social Security in your retirement plan, it is something that impacts all of us. Maybe you're currently working and therefore earning income and paying payroll tax, which means you're paying into the trust for Social Security. Or maybe you're 10 years out from retirement and you're curious what the right time to turn benefits on is going to be for you. But whether you know this or not, approximately 65 million Americans rely on our Social Security program. So let's kind of take a step back as to why it was created. It was born out of the need for economic security. Nothing was really put in place, 100 years ago for workers who were unemployed or died or, needed to stop working due to old age. And so the Social Security system in America was born. The history of Social Security is actually quite interesting, and the future of this insurance program has actually instilled a lot of a fear in Americans. A lot of people think that Social Security is going to become broke, and I'm going to kind of debunk some of those myths and help you understand the ins and outs of the program. So let's look at the past. Social Security Act was signed into law in 1935, and it created the social retirement system. This would pay benefits to workers age 65 and ongoing income after retirement. The benefits were ultimately determined based on the payroll tax paid into the fund given that individual's working life. Social Security numbers were actually created to help track this system. So they were first issued in 1936 as a way to register workers. And I know today we yes, that still exists and is the baseline for Social Security, but we've also used it as a true way to track our identity and other things. And so these working credits would be tracked through Social Security numbers, and then payroll taxes began to be collected in 1937. So you have the Act passed in 1935, Social Security numbers in 1936, and then in 1937 these credits started to begin being accumulated. And then by 1940, payments actually started to begin out of the trust. And so it wasn't until 10 years later in 1950 when the first amendments were made to the benefits, such as making an adjustment for cost of living. Some of you might know it by COLA, or in 1972, they made the first early retirement benefit available to retirees at age 62. So what this means is you just take a reduced benefit than what you would have received at your full retirement age of 65. And then it wasn't until the 70s that the shortage of funding was addressed. And it's funny, nearly 50 years later, we're still addressing shortages, but we'll get to that. In 1977, there was the baby boom and a poor economic outlook at the time. And so these amendments helped offset these concerns. And so they increased the payroll tax. They increased the wage base, so the amount of your wages that are subject to Social Security tax, and then they adjusted COLA rules. And keep in mind, nothing's changed since the 70s. The wage base has continued to increase, but we still have the same payroll tax that existed in 1977, and we still have the same COLA rules. So, as it stands today, you still earn Social Security benefits based on the credits you earned through your working years. The amount of the benefits you received is determined by your credit of those reported wages during the working years. It is intended to be turned on at your full retirement age. Full retirement age ranges from 65 to 67, depending on what year you were born. You may elect to turn on your benefits as early as age 62. Again, this is called the early eligibility age, but this will reduce your monthly benefit. On the flip side, you can delay Social Security until age 70, and this will result in a larger benefit than which you would have received at full retirement age. So, deciding when to take Social Security is a big decision for eligible individuals, and it ultimately comes down to personal choice and Social Security optimization. Okay, so let's address that fear of Americans that Social Security is going to run out. Remember, I mentioned that the revenues are generated from payroll tax and placed into a trust. What the concern is that more funds are going out than coming in from Social Security payroll tax. And it's not too much of a threat, but keep in mind, if nothing changes, this is going to become a true concern, just because of all the baby boomers retiring, and so they do foresee that more funds will be going out than coming in. Now, keep in mind, this can change, and this likely will change. However, we're about 10 years out from this being a real issue, and Congress tends to not enact on issues like this until it's a present concern, and so there's going to be a change, whether that be an increase to the payroll tax, an increase or elimination of that wage base, or new requirements and what it would mean to be eligible for Social Security. But the fact that 65 million Americans rely on Social Security just shows us that they can't just eliminate benefits. So I hope this helps you understand how Social Security works, why it is the way it is, and to kind of give you a little bit of optimism that, it's not just going to be depleted. Things will change, and it might not look the way that it looks today, but we can foresee Social Security being here for the future.